In this lesson, we're going to discuss the naming and formula writing of molecular or covalent compounds. Molecular compounds result when atoms of nonmetals bond by sharing electrons. Chemical formulas for molecular compounds cannot be predicted from the valence electrons involved. This is different from, say, a compound like sodium chloride, where because sodium has a charge of +1 and chlorine has a charge of -1, we can always predict that the compound is always going to be NaCl. So sodium will react with chlorine always in the same way. This is not true for elements of compounds or compounds of elements like carbon and oxygen, for example. We have carbon monoxide, we have carbon dioxide. They all react in different ways because of the ways in which electrons are shared. To write names for molecular compounds, you must know the chemical formula. And to write the chemical formula, you must know the name. A prefix system is used for naming molecular compounds containing two different elements. For example, the prefix mono is used to indicate one atom of an element in a compound, di 2, tri 3, and so forth. To write names for chemical compounds, we first must confirm from the periodic table that the elements of the compound are nonmetals, or metalloids as well. I should mention that the rules we're about to discuss, apply for compounds of metalloids with nonmetals as well. We need to consider the name and number of each element, and we use prefixes and then the last element in an IDE ending. So again, for covalent or molecular compounds, and I can use those terms interchangeably, we're really looking for compounds between atoms on the right side of the staircase, of course excluding the noble gases. So the first thing we want to do is look at the symbols of the atoms involved, of the elements involved, and confirm that we are in fact dealing with a covalent or molecular and not an ionic compound. So the first example, we have a compound forming between nitrogen and oxygen. We have 2 nitrogen atoms and 4 oxygen atoms. So I want to confirm that this is a covalent or molecular compound. And so if I look at here, I have nitrogen and oxygen forming a compound with a chemical formula of N2O4. So using the prefix system, if I have 2 nitrogen atoms, I have dinitrogen, tetra, oxide. Let's look at this very well-known compound. So here in this compound, the formula of CO2, I have carbon and oxygen. And this, of course, you will recognize as carbon dioxide. So you should notice here that we have no prefix in front of the first element. So in cases where you only have one atom in your first element, we do not use a prefix system. So it's carbon dioxide and not monocarbon dioxide. Lastly, let's look at how we write chemical formulas for molecular or covalent compounds. So simply, we just follow the instructions provided by the name. So in the first example, we have nitrogen monoxide. This describes 1 nitrogen atom and 1 oxygen atom. So the formula is simply just NO. And in the second compound, we have 1 sulfur. Hexa means 6, so we have 6 fluorine, so it just becomes SF6. And in the last example, we have, or not the last example, but here we have dichlorine monoxide, so we have 2 chlorine, and we have 1 oxygen. This gives us a chemical formula of Cl2O. And finally, my last example here, we have phosphorus trichloride. This implies 1 phosphorus and 3 chlorine, which gives us a chemical formula of PCl3. So this is how to name and write chemical formulas for molecular or covalent compounds.